Joined by Eddie Hearn here at the press conference for Conor Benn against Chris Algieri. And Eddie, when we spoke a few weeks ago, you told me this is a 50-50 fight. Is that still the way you're leaning?
I do, and I think, you know, it's such a tremendous fight. Chris Algieri, incredible resume. I mean, beat Provodnikov for the world title, had a life and death with Amir Khan, went the distance from Manny Pacquiao, fought Errol Spence. He's got money. He's achieved everything in the sport. He's not here just for a little payday. He's here because they fancy they can beat Conor Benn. They look at Conor Benn and say, we see holes. There are holes, by the way, but there's also a lot of danger. He's young, he's sharp, he's vicious, but, you know, it's the skill and the experience of Chris Algieri against the young lion in Conor Benn. It's a great crossroads fight and a really interesting fight, and I think Conor's got to be really switched on Saturday night.
When you spoke to Conor up on stage there, he said he's not looking fast, Chris Algieri. Doesn't even want to think about 2022, but you can think about 2022. What happens if he wins this fight this weekend?
I mean, the fight we'd love to make is Adrian Broner. You know, I think I'd have always wanted to bring him to the UK. And Conor Benn is emerging as one of the huge stars of world boxing. But at the moment, there's still potential and hype, and these are the kind of tests we're going to find out if this is a kid that can become world champion. He's put in so much work in the gym. He's a joy to be around. You know, he puts his whole life into boxing. And the improvements that he's made, it wasn't so long ago, when he was a raw novice walking out at the O2 or in Glasgow, he was all over the place. Now this kid is a world-class contender. Everybody tunes in to watch him because he's so exciting. But this is a real test for him on Saturday against a seasoned world champion.
When it comes to Katie Taylor on chief support, on paper, it's a mandatory defence, but has it been spiced up a little bit by the words the opponent, Sharapova's, had to say in the build-up?
They've been, I mean, you know, they've come with a team of almost like government officials from Kazakhstan. It's a bit worrying, to be honest with you. They've complained about the hotel, there's noise on the road, everything, and they take it very seriously. Like, she's a little bit of an unknown quantity. She's a mandatory challenger, 18 big wins on her record, punches very hard. Of course, Katie Taylor, all we're looking at right now is Firuze Sharapova, but I'm looking, as you said earlier, about Amanda Serrano at MSG. That's the biggest fight in women's boxing by a country mile, but she's got to get through these tests. And you keep seeing all these, and Conor's in the same boat. Everyone talking about what's next. You just saw Teofimo Lopez get beat by Kambosos because he was thinking about Haney and all these other fights. So it's a banana skin for Katie Taylor. The atmosphere in Liverpool is going to be amazing for her. Last time she boxed in Manchester, it was incredible. And you're going to get to see one of the greatest of all times to do it. And I hope she can be victorious.
How close do you think we are to seeing that fight against Amanda Serrano? If she wins her fight, Katie does this weekend, and of course Amanda fights next weekend as well.
Really, really close. I mean, my new mate Jake Paul, you know, negotiating that fight with him, which is a bit weird, but he wants to be, you know, part of it for him is ego as well, to say, I made the biggest fight in female boxing. You know, we paid these girls a fortune, and all those things are great, and I'd like to do the same. So we're definitely on the same page with respect of wanting to make an iconic fight that goes down in history, and that is Taylor against Serrano. 7 division world champion against the undisputed 2-weight world champion in Katie Taylor. Two icons of the sport, and fingers crossed we get it made.
Let's talk about the heavyweight division quickly. We saw the announcement from the WBC. They've ordered the negotiations to start when it comes to Dillian Whyte against Tyson Fury. So what does that mean?
It means that we know that fight's been ordered and Tyson Fury's got to take that fight. And the one thing we haven't got yet, which will come either via when purse bids are called or an arbitration, is the split of that fight. I said to Maurizio Suleiman at the weekend, it's very difficult to negotiate a fight when you don't know what the purse bid split is. You know, we're pushing for 55-45, Top Rank is pushing for 80-20. And if they make offers in that range, there's no agreement to a deal. So we, Matchroom, the Zone, would like to make a major offer to stage that fight. If Dillian gets a great offer to do that fight with Top Rank, we're willing to move forward with that position as well. But you know, he's got to get the respect that he deserves in those negotiations. He's been waiting a very, very long time. But the good news is for his career, and it, you know, from the WBC, appears like this is it now. It's time for him to get his shot.
The talk before that over the last couple of weeks has been about, is AJ going to step aside, a fight between Usyk and Fury, the undisputed champion we'd potentially find next year in that fight. But does this ordering of the fight between Whyte and Fury put that to bed?
Yeah, it certainly makes that very unlikely. It was unlikely anyway. You know, those conversations were chats that I'd had with the other side about a process that I may propose to Anthony Joshua if it made perfect sense in so many different areas. So it wasn't as if that was particularly close, but certainly with the order of the Dillian Whyte fight, it now looks like that's next for Tyson Fury, and AJ will rematch Usyk for his belts that he lost at Tottenham Hotspur.
Where did the idea of the £40 million
It's
step-aside deal come from?
I mean, and what's so worrying is people report this stuff. Do you know what I mean? I wish it was 40 million. Might have been done a couple of weeks ago.
Last 10% of
yeah,
that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, steady. So I didn't think about that. Not. But no, look, you read a lot of rubbish. Those weren't the numbers at all. And it's not even about the money. It's just about if that's a good idea for Anthony Joshua's career. He would love to fight the winner of that fight, and then he could fight undisputed, which he's wanted the whole time. But with the Dillian Whyte fight now, it looks like let them have their fight, AJ fight Usyk, and then the winners can fight each other for the undisputed.
And very finally, when it comes to that fight between AJ and Usyk, how close are we to the rematch being agreed, and where and when will that take place?
Well, the rematch is contracted, and there were talks over the last couple of weeks. Obviously, Usyk had his own talks with Team Fury, if that system could be worked. So now we go back to Alex Krasuk and we start making our plans. I think April is realistic for that fight. We'd love to do it back in England.
Will we see an undisputed heavyweight world champion next year?
Who knows? Let's just keep seeing good fights. We keep chasing this undisputed, but as long as we see great fights, look, you saw Wilder against Fury was a great fight. Joshua against Usyk, great fight, great spectacle. Now Whyte against Fury, the rematch. We're seeing great heavyweight fights. So the dream for every fighter and promoter should always be to make undisputed fights. But if we can't, let's just make crackers along the way.